Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Clare Martorana. She's the Federal Chief Information Officer representing the Office of Management and Budget. Ms. Martorana, it's great to have you.
Great to be here with you, Tom. Looking forward to the conversation.
And everybody in the federal government these days is talking about a lot of themes. One of them is cloud computing. The big one is customer experience. All of this happening in a secure environment. Lots of themes swirling around. So maybe let's begin with the beginning. There is an executive order on customer experience, and maybe review that for us, what it does, how it builds on some of the other initiatives from the administration, and what's going on generally for customer experience.
Yeah, great question. And lots of time spent on customer experience these days. But how I like to think about it is customer experience really is part of the continuum, right? Digital transformation, IT modernization, cybersecurity, delivering services to our customer. They're all part of an ecosystem. And customer experience is a way that we can really shine a lens, focus a light on how the government must work for all Americans, right? Technology powers mission delivery. So making sure that we are enabling this type of mission delivery at all of our federal agencies is really an important cornerstone of the CX executive order.
And what does the order really technically, managerially, operationally ask or task agencies to do here?
Yeah, we did something really, which is kind of a foundation of human-centered design. In designing this executive order, we worked with agencies, right? So rather than us standing on high and saying, thou shalt do these things, there was actually a lot of customer experience work going on already across government. Agencies focus on this every single day. So we worked with agencies. There's also work that had been going on for several years with high impact service providers, short acronym, because we love acronyms, HISPs. So with our high impact service providers, this work had been going on, and what the CX executive order really did is it builds on this work across, multiple administrations, and we are designing these experiences. So we're taking a step back, thinking about our customer, thinking about the journey that they go on, either interacting with a single agency or mission area in an agency, as well as thinking about the life experiences that are most common for Americans interacting with government. And that work was, in many ways, was already underway. This really just helped bring the attention of our DepSecs, right? The President's Management Council, this incredible group of folks that get together on a frequent basis, bringing senior advisors from the White House, their support, and then, bringing us together across OMB and the executive branch to really help.
Sure. And the HISPs, of course, are the big impact agencies. They're also, in many cases, the large, some of them are whole departments. But really, is it fair to say they can be a model for so many other federal components? I'm thinking of, say, the rural rental assistance part of USDA. Most people never heard of it, but for the people that rely on that rental assistance, it is their HISP, you might say. Or, there's a program that helps historically Black colleges and universities with grants. Again, most people never heard of that program, but that's a HISP to those grant recipients.
Yeah, absolutely. We think about the service delivery that we are deploying to the American public. That's what we think about every day. We think about it from a cybersecurity perspective, how safe and secure and resilient these programs are. And we think about it from actually working with these individual agency teams. So it is a really great lens to focus on, thinking of the customer on the outside coming into the agency. And I think it also really helps build on the theme of IT modernization and digital transformation, which has been going on for many years in government. But I think, again, this is just a wonderful way for us to focus our attention and to organize ourselves a little bit differently to solve some of these problems.
Sure. And let's talk for a moment about that expectation of what has to happen behind the curtain that the citizens don't see, but simply get the results of. And that is the expectations for how agencies need to reorganize themselves to be able to offer what is considered state of the art now in CX.
Yeah. And I would really say that this is, again, many agencies have been doing this for a while. So there are some really incredible lessons learned. Others are beginning this journey, right? So we're one of the things that is unique about this group is focusing the executive order on engaging senior leadership and agency leadership in general. Also making sure we have the right people at the table, the CFO team, the policy, legal, comms teams, all of these people coming together, program offices, making sure that we are thinking about this user journey, this life experience in a universal way, because you can think about running part of your organization at an agency in a narrow sliver, in a silo, but you can't do great work unless you are actually trying to solve these problems as a collaborative team with all of those people at the table.
And if you have that federal career workforce really engaged on this, then you've got a much better chance of the whole effort sticking as people come and go at the top, frankly.
Yeah, and I have always found that in my 7 now years in government, multiple agencies, the career workforce does this every single day, right? This is not something new to them. They come to work every day focused on the mission and wanting to deliver these valuable services to the people that they serve. So I think that one of the things that it's incumbent upon us to do is to continue to train, expose the federal workforce to some of these new technologies that may be quite commonplace in the private sector and sometimes have not actually made it into government agencies. And sometimes the government is actually leading in some of these areas. So I think it's a combination, but really the federal workforce is the cornerstone of this. Our contracting partners are the cornerstone of this. Because they are the ones here day in and day out delivering these services to the public.
And I guess there's a fundamental assumption going on here behind all of this, including the customer experience executive order. And that is that there has been a fundamental shift in what constitutes state-of-the-art customer experience. Early on in the so-called e-government era, it was really novel to be able to point a web browser and find out simply static information about what was happening at an agency. Later, you could do some simple transactions. Maybe I think the National Park Service was early on in there to be able to rent a tent or a cabin somewhere, this type of thing. Before that, you had the service to the citizen area under even the George H.W. Bush administration. So it's a constant journey, but there's the sense that something digital has changed fundamentally recently. Maybe it's mobile, maybe it's some other elements. Maybe discuss what it is that constitutes the state of the art now versus even 5 years ago, let alone 10 or 15.
Yeah, I think a simple way to think about this is we used to design systems in a vacuum, in private sector as well, right? This is not pointed just at government. We would often have a business problem we were trying to solve. And we decided we were the smartest people in the room and we were going to design the solution. The difference is in using human-centered design and working iteratively with technology teams, we're actually building component pieces of the experience, right? So we're starting out and we're trying to understand the problem we're trying to solve. We are doing journey maps, right? We're using all of these best practices to determine what the path is that the person is going down. And then we are trying to figure out how do we intersect and utilize technology in all of those different interactions. So, you'll hear DevSecOps is a way that I worked in the private sector prior to joining government. It is becoming much more commonplace where, constantly integrating new components of our products and services. And we're releasing our code every single day, right? So we're able to make changes very, very rapidly. So that is the way that I'm used to working in the private sector, and again, in some really best practices across government, versus taking a year to decide what your project's going to be, taking another year to get a procurement done, and then finally getting the contracting team on board, and then starting to do waterfall delivery. And then 5 years later, you release something out into the public, and oftentimes your technology has completely changed by the time you've launched that product or service. So building iteratively, right? Doing MVPs every step of your way, right? Minimally viable products, making sure you're launching components, allows you to be flexible. It allows you to really focus on where new technologies can be integrated into your process so that you can deliver the best service in the most safe, secure, and resilient way possible.
So it's taking almost a component-based approach, maybe with a platform supporting it all. And so then how do you bring in the journey mapping, the customer experience map, if you will, to those different components? It seems like that itself would be a continuous activity.
Well, it is actually, but also, the way that we configure teams to deliver service in this way is really kind of the magic, right? When you start in the journey mapping phase, you're not doing that in a vacuum, right? You're actually doing that with colleagues that have very unique specialties, right? So engineering, right? Bringing your engineers into the beginning of the process, bringing your designers along on the journey, right? Bringing subject matter experts that maybe don't code or aren't familiar with technology, but they darn well understand the subject area really, really well. So making sure that you have the right team, going back to your original question on what are the expectations on how agencies should organize, right? Agencies need to be building digital service capabilities. They need to be bringing the federal workforce along with them. They need to be writing the right contracting language so that we have our contracting teams using things like the digital service playbook, where we've actually articulated what the component pieces are for us to be able to deliver these services. And then I think really adding some additional competencies, which aren't all that common in government. They're very common in the private sector. And one example of that is product management. Product management is really different than project management or program management. Product management is this intersection of thinking about your business requirements. If you think of it as a Venn, thinking about your business requirements, thinking about your customer needs, and then thinking about the technology that you need to accomplish those business and customer requirements. Having all of those people at the table from the beginning of your journey mapping process is how you design great products that meet the needs of the user and deliver exceptional customer experience.
It sounds like almost you would need a psychological component, if you will, because people that interact with software that you don't know and you presume you've designed it for them, there are points where people just quit and give up and then pick up the phone or something. And so that element of knowing how people are reacting to what it is you've put out with that product, that counts too then, doesn't it?
It's really critical. You hit on a really great point. One of the projects that I had worked on was a call center project, and there was too much volume at the call center. They couldn't maintain, they just couldn't keep pace. So they went to a busy signal after 50 consecutive calls, right? So nobody was getting through at that pace. What we wound up doing was interrogating all the call center scripts, like the recordings, to understand why were people calling, right? What was even the reason that drove someone to actually contact a call center? And when we did the analysis on it, we realized 65% of the calls could actually be handled by self-service digital tools. Somebody forgetting their username or password, somebody wanting to reset a password. We can now safely do all of those things without needing the intervention of another person. And by being able to modernize in that way, what that does is it allows the people that actually need to talk to a human. It gives them the ability to actually get somebody on the phone to answer their question that might be more complex, or frankly, they might be in a state of mind where they just need to talk to somebody. If I often use the example when I was first at OPM, I got a phone call from a woman who had lost her spouse, and she didn't know how to access his federal retirement benefits. And she just needed to talk to somebody. And she accidentally dialed my number. I picked up the phone, and 45 minutes later, she'd explained to me their whole life journey together. And it was a really wonderful opportunity for me to remember that these are the people we want to make room for. So give people that are able, willing, and interested in using digital tools that path forward, but also making sure we don't leave anybody behind and that we provide the services to people that need them when they might need to have a human touch interaction.
And a really great side benefit of that, maybe not such a side, is that the employee experience is really elevated. If you are a call center employee, who would not rather deal with real meaty human issues than the same routine question 10,000 times that should be automated?
That's a really great point, Tom. And that is what we found from the call center agents. They wanted to spend the time on those really challenging cases where people really needed assistance to get access to their benefit or service. And it gave them a much higher sense of value because they were such subject matter expertise. But to your point, resetting a password for the 50th time that morning can be rather tedious, and we can deal with those things with technology.
The implication of what you described then is that the cloud can be a enabling technology for what I guess is commonly called the omni-channel customer experience approach. And we haven't gone there yet, but let's maybe talk about the idea that you implied pretty strongly, is that customer experience improvement through the cloud must encompass all of the channels by which people choose or need to interact with the agencies.
Absolutely. I think cloud policy universally, we are encouraging agencies to continue adopting cloud-based solutions, right? Like driving the centralization of those data assets that an agency has into public clouds, again, safely and securely, making sure that those systems are available and resilient. It really puts agencies on a path to deploying technology that's secure by design, really important. And it enables IT modernization, right? And, wholesale really, I think, maximizes the impact we can have with the taxpayer dollars that are entrusted to us. So, better customer experience, I think, can be delivered via cloud solutions. Additionally, in the omni-channel, rubric that we use, the only place that cloud doesn't really have a direct, immediate impact is in on paper. We have a lot of paper in government. We have an opportunity to modernize, as we've talked about, some of those digital transactions where appropriate, but we also do still process a lot of our transactions on paper. And my hope is that we continue to be relentless in moving to the cloud, adopting new technologies so that we are able to lower the volume of paper that we are processing in government, again, to your earlier point, because it really also helps our federal employees utilize these newer technologies and really drive value for the public.
And the use of cloud, especially if, say, someone comes up with a magic formula for eliminating 10 different forms, or say something like login.gov, which already exists, that's an example of where the cloud can enable shared services even by services, I mean technical processes behind what it is the agency is specifically offering. But many of the sub-processes are in common across multiple applications. And with cloud, agencies can shortcut to the very front end, perhaps, whereas some of the back end functions that they share in common might as well share because VAs figured it out. I'm at HHS. I don't need to figure it out myself.
Yeah. Yeah. You're exactly right. We are working really hard through the CIO Council to make sure that we continue to publish playbooks, share information. We're trying to avoid starting from a blank piece of paper, because any problem that we're trying to solve in government oftentimes has been solved by someone else or through our partners in the private sector, where we're able to use platform as a service, software as a service, to be able to speed our ability to deliver these services to the American people.
So that Social Security, for example, that is still probably for the foreseeable future going to have a walk-in clientele, just as, again, to use Veterans Affairs as an example, they both have a scheduling issue challenge, but really the scheduling is irregardless of whether it's for healthcare or for checking in on Social Security.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great work going on across the federal enterprise at different agencies, really trying to interrogate these challenges and share the opportunities that individual agencies have had at being successful. We have some really incredible digital transformation examples and IT modernization examples going on in government right now, with highly capable teams delivering really great products and services, again, in partnership with our private sector colleagues. So I am really excited and optimistic about where we're going. And I think that this customer experience executive order really gives us a set of areas to focus on, and share that information both across agencies that are not currently collaborating together, but really importantly, across these life experiences that we've identified, that I think you touched on a little bit by utilizing some shared services like login.gov.
And before we get to some of those examples, I want to hear about them. I wanted to just discuss the idea of metrics. And metrics for good customer experience also evolve over the decades. I'm thinking when you ordered a book from Pueblo, Colorado at one time, after seeing the TV ad, well, you could measure the metric on how long it took to deliver that postcard to the person that ordered it. Very different nowadays in the digital era. What's OMB doing from the standpoint of watching the government-wide effort at modernization here, doing to promulgate metrics so that agencies can say, yeah, it is better and here's how?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't manage what you can't measure, right? So it is absolutely mission critical for us to develop metrics and share those common metrics across the customer journey and across our entire ecosystem. So some examples would be, how are we measuring the increase in the use of self-service digital tools and the transaction process? To my earlier point, are we decreasing the use of paper-based forms? Right, that is really measurable. Are we decreasing call center wait times? Are we decreasing the time from a call to the issue resolution? These are all really measurable for team performance. We also have really focus on other digital metrics. What is the source of your traffic? Where is somebody coming from? How long do they stay on your website? Are they clicking through? Are they bouncing and abandoning you? So those are all really standard metrics that are available through basic dashboards and analytics programs that we wire into every single website that is built. And then I think that we also have been really focused on this concept that the White House senior advisor talks about quite a bit, called the time tax. Are we reducing the burden on the public and on the federal workforce as we are delivering these products and services. So, making sure that we are not adding burden, but we're actually reducing burden to the workforce and to the people we're serving.
Briefly on the TMF, can that help agencies get there? And what's the quick secret for people getting to those funds to help them with customer experience?
Absolutely. TMF, we've just done $100 million allocation for customer experience, open to all agencies, including the high impact service providers. We did a expedited review process. So we have 2 dates. The first one was August 1st, which passed, and that was for this expedited review. But we are still open in this portfolio till September 30th, which is the final date for people to submit. And what we're focused on is projects that span agencies and systems. To your earlier point about, some shared services and commonalities, is something that Medicare and Social Security are in the retirement user experience, life experience. Are there things that we can look at that actually help that journey of someone trying to retire and making sure that they can do something possibly once and have it shared appropriately with both agencies. And then we're really working hard. The board is committed with the project management office to really try to drive the investment decisions for that $100 million allocation, into early FY23. So we'll try and get as much out the door as we can in 22. And we had a lot of lessons learned from TMF submissions that came in June that kind of overwhelmed the system. But I think one really interesting innovation that we created, the project management office at GSA, was an expression of interest form. So rather than you having to do a long, initial project proposal, you can just tell us, here's the problem I'm trying to solve. Here's how I'm thinking about solving it. And then we will get on the phone with you, the project management office and technical subject matter experts, and actually work with the team to make sure that your project proposal is in the best shape possible and that we are not wasting agencies' time trying to write this elaborate proposal when it might be off base from what we're trying to accomplish. So that expression of interest form is available on the TMF website.
And in the moment we have left, just what are a couple of your favorite examples of where this modernization, this cloud usage is really coming to bear on great CX?
I think there's some examples at USDA, as you mentioned. There's a great project going on right now at the Department of Veterans Affairs in helping with login and simplifying some of their systems. They had many internal systems and some private, sector systems, and really trying to simplify that for the veteran. So there's lots and lots of examples. I'd also encourage people to go to tmf.gov, where we're actually building use cases. So we're able to both share the information about what the project is about, and we will be, publicizing the progress that we're making across the CX portfolio and all of our other IT modernization and cybersecurity efforts.
Clare Martorana is the Federal Chief Information Officer, speaking from the Office of Management and Budget. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Tom, and have a great rest of your day.
All right, I'm Tom Temin. You're listening to Federal News Network. Let's go back to the studio for more on the Cloud Exchange.